This week on Time Trumpet, the War on Terror.
One of those terrors came round my way, I'd smack him one, I'd show him.
The day the BBC realised some of its presenters were old and past it.
Last night, Conservative peers blocked plans to end the automatic right to trial by jury and proposals for foundation hospitals.
We visit Tim Henman at his new cafe.
Would you like a slice of cake with your coffee?
And we remember Cilla Black's live autopsy.
There we are. Just hand you that carrot.
It's 2031, and with the opening of the new Atlantic footbridge, we have the ability to walk freely wherever we want. We can take food in convenient pill form, so that all we need eat are pill meals. But life was so different 30 years ago.
Children under 10 are getting fatter, with new figures out today showing there's been a sharp rise in the number of obese children in England. Our health correspondent Jill Higgins reports.
This is the age group seeing the biggest rise in obesity. It's increasing the children's risk of heart disease and diabetes. Today's message is that weights must come down.
But if the problems are so obvious, why are they proving so difficult to tackle?
It's easy to claim that my product doesn't make a difference, my advertising isn't making a difference, my school meals aren't making a difference. So I think the blame has to be shared, but we really all do have to take responsibility for creating a world where our kids are being damaged.
I saw a kid once, he was so fat you couldn't see his eyes. His mouth was like a tube.
One man concerned with children's eating habits was, of course, Jamie Oliver.
Kids, how'd you fancy a bit of Jamie Oliver for your dinner tonight?
Jamie Oliver cloned himself and made himself into little mounds of Jamie Oliver flesh. So that was what you cooked.
I've got this product. It's called Jamie Oliver's Cuts. It's my own cloned flesh made from my own body. And it talks, right? So it says things like, it says, pick me up. It says, tenderise me. Put it in the frying pan, stick a bit of salt on, you do what it says, and there you are.
Grate that over, mate, to give it a little bit of a twang. And I just want about 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil.
You could have a bit of camaraderie with the ingredients, and it was sort of nice. It made it a much more human process. Or, have you gone off, or you were all right for a couple of days? No, I'm all right, Always very jolly.
Bit of chilli powder. It does get up my old nose, though.
I mean, it's quite a startling idea, this whole cloning your own flesh. How did you arrive at that?
Yeah, well, it was after the bird flu thing. Somebody told me that human flesh tasted a bit like chicken, So I cut a toe off and fried up the little parsley, and it was lovely. Jules loved it. And we took it from there, really. Found a few scientists, teamed up with them, and it all kicked off.
Yeah, do you miss your toe?
No. I cloned another one from the other foot.
I've got nice sort of fat marblings. All that fat's going to kind of like melt and kind of make me really, really tasty.
If I want a piece of meat that's going to talk back to me, I'll just go and find myself a man, won't I? Girls, eh?
You love your Jamie Oliver, don't you? Now make sure...
Yeah, well, I bought some Jimmy Oliver meat, which I thought was the same thing, but it turned out to be like a cheaper version, and it just said things like lovely Jubilee and Puka.
How did you feel when Gordon Ramsay brought out processed Ramsay flesh that swore?
I had one of his gourmet sausages the other day. It came back up and swore at me. Said, chew me properly, you fat twat.
A little bit of mustard on me. Cooked in Coca-Cola. Fuck all else. Do me a favour and fuck off. Go on.
I mean, I'm sorry, but who wants a cutlet that shouts out your mother's a cocksucker?
Yeah.
Eh?
Do you remember some of the documentaries at the time?
Oh yes, The Girl with the Voice of Boris Johnson.
Bueno, María, si quisieras decir unas palabras para las cámaras.
My appreciation of Pericles is very much a romantic and literary one.
There is no cure for Maria. It isn't fatal, but I doubt she'll make it to 30.
Beware. There's a Laura blood. I root around and examine dear old Cilla.
Do you remember Cilla Black's autopsy? Yeah, Cilla Black, that was a brilliant one. But some of the other ones, like Anthea Turner's, that was a bit of a flop.
Oh! Surprise, surprise. It's an ovarian cyst.
Yeah, but do you know, apparently she was a singer.
No, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Well, they didn't know till they opened her up.
In 1964, Cilla Black had a hit with Anyone Who Had a Heart. And anyone who's ever seen a heart would recognise the telltale signs of atherosclerosis. It's here, and also here.
What did you enjoy most? Years 2005, 6, 7, 8 and 9.
I guess what I most enjoyed in the year 2005 to 9 was the War on Terror.
Today, in 2031, we've got so used to 30 years of terror that some of it no longer scares us.
Hello.
But at the time, people were genuinely scared.
Now and again you think, oh, this bloody terror, you know, all this terror, you know, and you often hear people say that, you know, you say, how are you doing? All right, apart from all this terror, this wretched terror.
And they had every right to be scared. The war on terror was one the government was losing. This policeman should have arrested this suicide bomber instead of giving him directions to Buckingham Palace. And though we'd eliminated the threat of the enemy flying planes into buildings, no one was prepared for terrorists flying 2 buildings into the sides of planes. No one was killed, but a lot of people were surprised. But 30 years ago, Tony Blair and then Gordon Brown got through no fewer than 24 Home Secretaries in trying to combat terror. Between them, they tried to come up with as much legislation as possible to stop terror.
We banned rucksacks, but it had very little effect, so we had to go further and ban buses and trains.
That only had a limited effect, so we decided in the end to ban all forms of transport.
So people would walk from city to city, but as we had already banned rucksacks, they couldn't bring any supplies, and a lot of people died from dehydration.
Well, we actually asked TV and radio programmes to include bomb threat plots within their storylines. They had a dirty bomb go off in Balamory. People never forgot that, never.
We got a lot of people in. We got movers and shakers from the entertainment industry. We got Richard Curtis in to do a special Vicar of Dibley sketch with Dawn French and that idiot blonde woman who kept asking Dawn, does Allah approve of bombing and bombers?
Well, the joke was meant to be that in a West Country accent it came out like bumming and bummers.
There have been more angry protests in Muslim countries. Here, several hundred protesters marched through central London.
These were waiting for worshippers when they arrived at the mosque in Regent's Park in London for the midday prayer. Many people didn't like them. The mosque's own security people were also unhappy and made them take the placards out onto the street.
I remember people started saying things about Muslims, like, oh, Muslims are very nice, aren't they? People would often drop that into conversation just in case anyone was listening who might, you know, and you'd have all sorts of non-sequiturs. People would say, that's £1.70 please, and I like Muslims.